What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Morning, everybody. Happy Secret Sunday to you. I am your host, Love Coach Scott Thomas, and welcome to today's Awakening World. And we have a wonderful show. You know, so many people are looking for community. You know, it's funny, 20, 30 years ago, everybody was looking for their soulmate. But now most of the people that I talk to, whether they're single or in relationship, are looking for their tribe. They're looking for their community. Of course, Global Peace Tribe is a wonderful online community, but a lot of people are looking for where can they live? And so today's show, we've got the woman who knows all about that. She's been on our show twice over the last 3 years. Cynthia Tina is with us, and she literally wrote the book on it. And we're going to have a wonderful presentation from Cynthia, all about what she's discovered about intentional communities all around the world. So really looking forward to spending a good hour and a half with Cynthia. Thank you. But before we get started, it is the Sacred Sunday Show. And in a moment, Omar Shar is going to lead our morning meditation and do an opening musical number. So excited about that. Now, I want to welcome, of course, we see a lot of our friends that are in the Zoom room. And thank you, everybody who remembered about daylight savings time. I know that I'm missing that hour last night. But I also want to acknowledge that a lot of you are watching on Facebook. We go out over 135 Facebook groups and pages now. And so if you're watching on Facebook or one of our YouTube channels, maybe Alan Steinfeld's YouTube channel, or you're watching on the Conscious Awakening Network, that's great. But I want to really invite you, come on in and join the Global Peace Tribe. It's very easy to do that. And that way, what happens is when you join, you're going to get the links to all of our shows for the next 4 months, all the way through June 30th. And that will allow you to come on into the Zoom room and interact. You might have questions for Cynthia today, for example, or you might want to practice light touch with us. So there's a lot of wonderful ways to participate, and it's really a good idea to join the Global Peace Tribe. And here's how you do it. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, and that'll take you, of course, to our website. You can learn all about us and our shows, and then click register for the new season. That takes you to our registration page. And as I said, we do 3 or 4 shows every week with all sorts of wonderful hosts and amazing people. And our topics all vary. For example, on Wednesday night, we had a wonderful show celebrating our sensuality and our sexuality. And we had Annie Sprinkle, a true icon, who joined us. And we really talked about the sex positive movement going back 50 years ago and what's happening with it today with new leaders in the movement like Erika Briones and Trish Wright. Last night's show was delightful. It was so beautiful. It was all about doing everything with love. And we had a wide variety of people, ranging from a Pakistani lawyer and activist to a nurse, to, of course, musical artists, entrepreneur, all about how to really, in an animal rights activist, how do we really do whatever it is we're doing in life with love? What does that really mean? What's that look like? It's a beautiful show. And then, of course, here's today's show with Cynthia Tina, all about finding your community. Again, when you join our Global Peace Tribe, what's also good is you get the links. But on Monday, we send out the replays, the recordings to the shows. So please do join us. And again, welcome everybody that's here. And those of you in the Zoom room, let us know where you are geographically. Even though I know where it is, Cynthia doesn't know where you are. She's in Vermont, so she'll enjoy seeing where people are coming from. I know that we've got friends from Ecuador to British Columbia and all over the continental United States. So, all right, beloved brother Omar Shar is going to do both the meditation and the opening song. So thank you, my friend.
Yes, well, with the time change, I actually got myself up an hour early, and I thought, let's get prepared, because we always expect the unexpected. So namaste and aloha, everybody. Happy Sacred Sunday, and I hope you're feeling whole and ready for a beautiful day of inner sacred dialogue. And so let's just, little crystal heart here, let's just start by putting our hands on our hearts and taking a few deep breaths, and let your eyes soften and let the tension go from your jaw and your throat. And with another deep breath, free the tension from your chest and your abdomen. And begin to let that gentle breath of life flow through your body, a gentle flow, the river of life, and be at peace with yourself. Let your mind have a vacation today and let go of all anticipation and all expectation. I am love. I love the source of all creation above all else. My neighbor as myself, and myself as an awakening conscious being. I am wisdom. I distinguish what is breaking down from what is breaking through. I let go of what is breaking down. I am faith. I know there is a perfect design of creation. Each of us is a vital element in that design. I know I am now acting in perfect harmony with that design. Deep breath. I am courage. I know that I am not working alone. I am surrounded by mighty companions upon this earth and in the universe beyond. And together we work towards our inevitable awakening. Another deep breath. I am patience. The timing is not in my hands. I live in eternity and I act in the present. I am fulfilled. I surrender all need to know the timing and I act in joy. I am power. To the degree that I empower others, I am now empowered. And I am surrender. Not my will, but thy will be done, on earth as it is throughout the cosmos. Namaste.
Sometimes it feels so hard to move along, saying goodbye to yesterday. Take heart, my friends, there is a new song bringing us back to our homelands. When something troubles you, just call out my name. I am the one who loves you. Be still within. hear what I say, and give me the chance to be with you. We are one heart, one mind, one soul, working together to heal. And there are no walls between us now. It's a celebration of union. So when you're feeling down and on your own, take a look around. I am in everything. Give me your burden, walk into my arms. I will lift you up, I will hold you. We are one heart, one mind, one soul, working together to heal. And there are no walls between us now. It's a celebration of union. We are the ones who hear the new voice calling us home to freedom. Fear not, my friends, this is a new place full of new joys and happiness. Yes, we are one heart, one mind, one soul, working together to heal. And there are no walls between us now. It's a celebration of union.
So I'll go to twinkling mode. Let's give him some good love and twinkles for a beautiful meditation. And
Better Together. Yeah, that was a phenomenal meditation. It was a hybrid of one of my meditations and words by Barbara Max Hubbard, which I wove throughout the meditation. So it was very powerful. And I felt that I was honoring her. And she sort of has what we know she does. She still has a voice in this world. And so thank you, namaste, and let's carry on.
Oh, thank you. Well, I want to remind everybody that you can support Omar Shah by going to his website on Bandcamp. omarshah.bandcamp is where his albums live, and we definitely can support him that way. I'm part of the Unity Earth program, and every Wednesday we have a show that Boulder puts on. And somebody played Barbara Marx Hubbard's speech that she gave at the Democratic National Convention decades ago. And it was, she was running for vice president. It was the year that Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro got the nomination. And it was really powerful listening to Barbara speak and being reminded of just what a visionary she was, and everything.
It's true. It's truly amazing. She has been, the last 2 decades has been in my consciousness somewhere, and her verbiage, there's a better word than that, is profound. Even from 30 years ago, you put it in today's context, and it's so relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and of course, we will have more Omar Shah happening in a little while. All right, I'm going to introduce our guest. I'm so glad that she came back. This is, of course, Cynthia Tina, and many of you remember her from before, but a lot of you, this will be new. And she's the co-director for the Foundation for Intentional Community. And she works at the heart of regenerative community networks. She's dedicated to creating change by uplifting examples of our future world unfolding. She's the co-director of the Federation of Intentional Communities, vice president on the board of trustees at the Global Eco-Village Network, coordinator of the Day of Sustainable Communities in North America, and a freelance consultant. Yes, she's definitely somebody that you can consult with to find out about what community you might be looking for that she's aware of. She has traveled to over 100 sustainable community projects across 4 continents, excuse me. And her passion is supporting community projects to flourish through strategy consulting, marketing services, and group facilitation. I mean, you really are the probably most knowledgeable person on the planet, Cynthia, about intentional communities. We're certainly right up there. So thank you very much for being with us today and sharing some Sunday morning with us and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. It's really great to be back. And hello, everyone who has joined. And thank you so much for that meditation and song. I'm just feeling completely relaxed and present and looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, me too. Isn't it wonderful to watch everybody kind of moving and getting
Yeah.
going? You know, it's really sweet, especially when it's Sunday morning and a lot of us are on the West Coast where it's a little bit earlier and we lost that hour of sleep. So I know you've got a really beautiful presentation. And so I'm going to ask Cynthia to kind of go right into it. And then we will take questions. And then at the very end of the show, we're going to do some light touch together. Definitely, I will be keeping track of questions in the chat box. And again, for those of you watching on Facebook, come on into the Zoom room, just join Global Peace Tribe and come on into the Zoom room so I can catch your questions. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Cynthia. And thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. And I really do welcome questions. I'm looking forward to hearing what you all are curious about in this wide topic of intentional communities. All right, so this is my presentation on finding your community, and I'll be talking about a wide variety of intentional communities. It really is a big umbrella. I'll be defining exactly what an intentional community is, some of the benefits of living in one, how you may know if you are fit for community living, if you are meant to join an existing community, maybe start a community, or just go and visit communities to get inspired by them. And I'll also be going through some of my favorite communities that I have visited around the world. All right, so I want to start with sharing about myself and the community where I live. So I am right now calling in from my home at Headwaters Eco Village in Vermont. We are a small intentional community, about a dozen or so families, and we live on a hill within walking distance to the nearby town. We're very well connected with the town and our surrounding neighbors. And as you can see, we have this lovely garden that I would say is really the heart of our community. Everyone who lives here helps with tending the garden and enjoying the harvest. And we do have very extreme seasons. So I've included a photo down below of what the community looks like more this time of year with 2 feet of snow outside. And even though we have a lot of snow in the winter, we still find a lot of ways to connect and gather over the bonfire, a lot of birthday parties. We have so many kids in the community. So I feel like every month there's somebody's birthday to celebrate. And one of the things that makes our community unique is everyone who lives here has built their own home. That is not necessarily typical of intentional communities. Sometimes when you join a community, you'll just be buying or renting an existing structure. But this is one of the reasons why I chose to live in this community, is because it's been a lifelong dream to build my own home. So I'll show you some more photos. This is my house, still in progress. This is a photo from the fall. You can see there's a large greenhouse along the southern wall. So this is more of a passive solar design, loosely based on a Earthship model, which is a sustainable building home technique. But I've adapted it for this climate where we have much more cloudy and cold winters. And you can see in this photo, I'm using a lot of natural building techniques on the interior, including hempcrete and light straw clay, and slip and ship, which is clay and wood chips, which we have a lot of woods in this environment. So it's very suitable to that.
Cynthia, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
been 3 years in the making. Has taught me so much about hard work. But yeah, I'm really glad I'm living in it finally.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are similar photos. And one of the cool things about getting to do this in community is that I have neighbors all around me who have also built their own home. And there's so much knowledge sharing and sharing of tools and building materials. So this is actually a photo here of a neighboring intentional community about an hour's drive away here in Vermont that came one day to help me with some of the building. So a lot of inter-community collaboration. So a little bit more about my journey. I did not grow up in an intentional community, although it is my passion and my work and my life currently. I grew up in the suburbs outside of Boston with parents who were very loving and supportive, which I'm so grateful for. But they, still don't really understand everything that I'm doing, or why I would want to live in a community or what it is really all about. But I think that through having their support and just being curious about different ways of living, getting really inspired by Native American ways of living, and later on getting into permaculture and growing my own food and medicine, this really prompted me to start traveling at a young age. And I visited my first intentional community when I was 15, a place in North Carolina. And this set me off on a journey around the world, to many, many different communities and different places. And I think through this journey, I have gotten in touch with not only the communities, but also the organizations that are supporting the network of these communities around the world. So I think, this is a slide showing just some photos of some of the wonderful organizations I've had the privilege to work with, including the Foundation for Intentional Community, the Global Eco-Village Network, among many others. And it's incredible. There's so many people who are wanting to lift up this movement and help to make it more accessible and more possible for a larger number of people. So certainly from my position, the movement is growing, but of course I probably have some bias. So at this point, I have visited over 140 communities across 22 countries and in 31 of the United States. And beyond this, I've also, through my work with the organizations, gotten to work virtually with many more communities beyond this. And so, as I've been doing this work in this space, more and more people have contacted me saying, oh, can you recommend a community in this area? Or I want to do a vacation in Costa Rica, or I'm looking for a community in California. And slowly this became my community matchmaking service. So that's a lot of what I do today. And I've started an organization called Community Finders to support people in finding community. And in addition to living in Vermont, I have gotten to develop a really deep connection with a community that my partner helped co-found in Slovenia, which is a small country in Europe, just below Italy, not Slovakia, Slovenia. And he is Slovene. And so I have spent a year in one go, but cumulatively, I'm sure several years at this point, visiting this community. And I'm so excited that this June, I'm actually going to be taking a group to Slovenia to experience the eco-villages there. So that's the link, ecovillagetours.com. If you're interested in joining us, we still have a few places left. All right, so what is an intentional community? Let's get into some definitions and some community types so you have a good overview of what it is I'm speaking to. Definition of an intentional community: a group of people choosing to live together or regularly share facilities on the basis of explicit common values. So these are communities that are largely formed when an individual or a group gets together and lays out some common values that'll really underpin the formation of the community. And then everyone who joins later is buying into that set of values. And I'm mostly talking about residential communities. Of course, we can have all kinds of intentional communities like the one that the Global Peace Corps Tribe has. But today we're going to be talking about residential or place-based communities. So communities that are building in a small location where, you know, you would have your home and share life with your neighbors. There's many reasons why intentional community living is fantastic, and I could go on, but I have listed some of the big benefits here, starting with connection. Even before COVID, we had a loneliness crisis, especially in the United States, where, you know, so many people are living in isolation, not feeling connected to their neighbors, and that has some pretty serious health impacts. So intentional community living is kind of like going back to how humans were designed to live evolutionarily as a species in small, close-knit social circles. And that has a lot of benefits for our social and emotional and mental health. So that's a big reason. I put that at the top. Beyond that, there's sharing resources. You know, we don't all need to own our own lawnmower, let's say. We can share things that enable us to live more lightly on the land. And that is, of course, more sustainable. I will put a caveat here because sometimes people think maybe there's all kinds of stereotypes out there about intentional community. And one of them is, oh, if I join a community, I need to give up all of my belongings and everything is totally shared. Most intentional communities these days, the modern intentional communities, are really based on having a large degree of privacy and independent ownership, with the benefit of common land and spaces and facilities to enjoy. And this all helps to strengthen your resiliency and the resiliency of our communities to face whatever challenges lie ahead of us. Speaking of COVID, I think this was one of the things that we saw most strongly was the residents living in intentional communities, by and large, did not experience the degree of stress that many people not living in community experienced during COVID. And we did some surveying during different phases of the pandemic, and we're really like, wow, this really demonstrated to us that community living is a good thing. And you get that support. You know, having someone to go to when you're having a rough day. You can go and knock on your neighbor's door. You know, then there's the classic examples of you run out of eggs when you're baking a cake. There's just many, many layers that can come of support when you actually know the people who are living near you. And then co-creation and experimentation. You know, and I wouldn't want to mislead anyone when talking about the benefits of intentional community living. It is not always easy. A lot of the challenges that show up in the wider world show up in the microcosm of community too. But the opportunity in community is that we get to really sit with a lot of those challenges and the polarization and the tension, and we get to work through those things as a group. And of course, fun. There's so much fun that comes through getting to to live in community. A lot of gatherings and creativity, arts, expression, beautiful gardens. Yeah, can have a good time. All right, so these are some of the terms you may have heard before that all refer to a type of intentional community. And it's a big, like, intentional community is a big tent, and all of these different categories fit within that. And I have on my website, I have some great articles that go more in depth into each of the different types. I'm not going to do that so much here today, although I will touch on the more common types, including eco-village, which essentially is a community that's trying to be more sustainable. Housing, that's another common type. And co-housing is a little misleading. You may think it's people sharing a house together. That's actually not what co-housing means. This is a development concept that came from Denmark. Two American architects were over there studying the model and coined the term, brought it here to the US. There's now over 200 co-housing communities where individuals have their own private dwelling with their own kitchen, their own bath, and then all of these common facilities, usually a common house as well for them to enjoy. And let's see, housing co-ops, those are definitely another common type. It's a cooperative model, like you have your grocery co-op. Well, this is a version for housing. And spiritual communities, definitely given this group, I'm going to be talking a bit about communities that have a shared intention around spirituality and how they're showing up as a collective in this world. All right. I want to say anything more here? I think that's enough for right now. And I'll go through more of the types when I'm sharing the examples. If you're curious about which type of community is for you, I have a quiz. It's a fun little, 2-minute quiz you can take, answer some questions, and get a sense for which of the type of community is a fit for you. So there's the link. Where to find them? So estimates vary, but there are at least 2,000 intentional communities in the United States and closer to 10,000 intentional communities globally that are documented on some of the major intentional community directories. So I have 3 of the biggest directories listed here, and there's like a lot more. There's, I think 20 or more different online directories, with interactive maps and search tools. So if you're curious to find out, where an intentional community may be that you could visit nearby or in a place that you would want to go to have a vacation, here are some of those links. And especially the IC.org directory, I think, is a good one if you're stateside and looking for community. Okay, so now we'll get into my favorite part, which is actually talking about some of the incredible examples of intentional communities out there. And here's a photo of Cloughjordan Eco-Village in Ireland. It was one of the first eco-villages in Ireland, right adjacent to the traditional town of Cloughjordan. So you can think of this as like an eco-village appendix coming off of the just traditional village. You're walking down the street, and then all of a sudden you walk into something that feels quite a bit different. And they've won so many awards for their ecological building design. Just really impressive what they've done there. They have a maker space in the community with a 3D printer and, office spaces. I would like to start by sharing about one of the most incredible initiatives I have seen in the communities movement recently, which is all of the communities in Ukraine, about more than 60 eco-villages that have opened their doors to refugees during the war, and created a project in Ukraine, but also throughout Europe, to support these refugees in finding safe havens in community. And it's called the Green Road Project. There's a wonderful documentary, and there's, I think Mother Jones just came out with a news article, and other major media outlets have been picking up on it. There's now 300 communities throughout Europe. Is that right? It might even be more. And they've welcomed thousands of refugees at this point. So it's just really, I was in Europe this summer at the European Eco-Village Conference that happens every year in a different community throughout Europe. And they had some residents from these Ukrainian eco-villages there, and just hearing their stories was so, yeah, touching, and speaks to the power of community. Yeah.
I'm so grateful you're sharing that part, Cynthia. Of course, we've done a lot of programs, and fundraisers for various causes, but that's just a beautiful, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, of course, we're so aware of all the refugees having to leave Ukraine, but how beautiful that so many intentional communities have opened the doors, and that there are 60 plus still in Ukraine. So I'm really appreciating you sharing that piece with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, I think it's important for folks to know about. And of course, these eco-villages have experienced a big population influx and are certainly looking for donations to build more structures. And I know recently there was a big fundraiser for a straw bale home to be built in a community to house more refugees. So I'm sure they would appreciate the support. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This is wonderful, by the way. And there are big questions coming up, but I'll wait until we'll take like a little break, halfway through, and I'll get to some questions and also comments. People are just really appreciating this very, very much. So,
good. I'm glad to hear it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
This is awesome.
Good. All right. Well, the next community I'd like to share is perhaps the largest intentional community in the world, and that is Auroville, also known as the Universal City in India. And they have close to 3,000 residents. And it was a barren desert over 50 years ago, and the residents have done incredible work to transform the land into a food forest with many different neighborhoods and all kinds of farms. And this is a photo of the Matrimandir, which is the physical and spiritual center of the community. It's a giant sphere covered in leaf gold. I got to visit Auroville, and it's massive. Like this banyan tree is, I think, nature's equivalent to the man-made temple, and both are monumental in scale. The community itself, you have to get a little scooter to drive around to see all the different neighborhoods. So if you get the chance to visit Auroville, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Findhorn community in Scotland. This is another well-known spiritual community. Also began over 50 years ago on the rugged coasts of Scotland. You can see the gorse flower over there that grows in the sandy dunes on the coast. And Findhorn became famed for growing these giant cabbages, which they attributed to their connection with nature and the deities of nature. And today, Findhorn has expanded greatly, home to over 600 people. They have a large events hall where they host many, just great conferences and gatherings. So another one, if you're in Europe or thinking about European eco-villages, highly recommend Findhorn. And Findhorn has a sister community here in the United States. It's Sirius Community in Massachusetts, where I actually lived for about a year and a half, and I've gone back to visit frequently. They also have a greenhouse along the southern wall, which is a big inspiration for me in designing my home. Sirius is much smaller. They have about 30 residents tucked into the woods, a lot of naturally built homes, cob, straw bale, all of the wood used in construction and heating of the dwellings is from the land itself. Then we have Twin Oaks community in Virginia. And we haven't touched so much yet on income sharing communities. So I'll use this opportunity to mention that there is a small category of communities that are income sharing, where residents who live there participate in the community's businesses and pool all of their incomes together. But most intentional communities are not income sharing. So this is maybe about like 10% or less of the communities that exist are income sharing. Most, you have your own independent finances, your own work remotely or commuting or within the community. But Twin Oaks has really proven the model. They've been around for 50 years. They have a tofu business, a hammock making business. They have a really robust farming business, and they have inspired a number of other income sharing communities in their area of Virginia. So yeah, this is the commune. This is what some people think when they hear the word intentional community. Oh, the communes of the 50s and 60s and 70s. Well, some of them still exist and are going strong. It's not the only model, but for some people, it's what they are looking for. Then we have Eco Village at Ithaca in New York State, a little closer to where I am. And this is the largest eco-village in the United States. Around 500 residents living in 3 distinct neighborhoods, which are co-housing development neighborhoods. To use some more terms here. So this is an eco-village and a co-housing community. And they are about a 10 minutes drive to the city of Ithaca, surrounded by all this beautiful forests you can see, and also farms and gardens. And again, they have won many awards for their ecological building design and do welcome people on tours. Another one that I recommend if you are looking to maybe experience an eco-village for a longer period of time or do a workshop or a program, Earth Haven Eco-Village, just outside of Asheville in North Carolina, is a great community for that. I lived in the area not too far away from them for several years and really got to know this community. They have wonderful natural buildings, gardens, all the things that you might expect from an eco-village, and around 100 residents at this time.
I'm going to come in for a moment. There's an interesting thing. Actually, just stop it for a moment because I want to share a couple questions and but about Asheville, North Carolina. I have a very good friend named Daniel Schmachtenberger, who works for, he's employed by a global think tank, and they're very well funded, and they're all about coming up with solutions for the world. And they spent tens of thousands of dollars exploring the safest places to be, given all the different considerations, climate change, probable natural disasters. And they determined that the safest place in North America is projected to be Asheville, North Carolina. So
really?
When I saw that, and Daniel's he's like a serious dude, and the people he works with are serious, and they've really been investing a lot to explore that. So when I saw that, I just felt like I had to jump in and share that with you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There's several intentional communities around in Asheville and around Asheville. It's definitely a thriving hub for all kinds of alternative movements, not only community living, but certainly that. So
it's interesting. And Daniel went into just a few of the details with me. It's high enough so there's no mosquitoes, there's no flooding, there's no hurricanes. They don't have a history of earthquakes. It's wildfires occasionally happen, but it's fairly rare. It's a very temperate climate, very good for agriculture. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. There's also a couple of questions I think I just want to get into right away.
Let's do it.
And then you can integrate that. But we're wondering about kind of medical freedom, with COVID, how many communities, demanded vaccinations or not. So the whole medical freedom question has come up. And then also is just the question about income, like, what levels of financial contribution. Now, of course, obviously it really varies, but I felt like those were two questions that came up. And then the third one was about schooling. Is it all homeschooling?
Mhm.
So schooling, medical freedom, and kind of income necessary or financial necessary are three questions that I think would be great to tackle. And then we'll get back to the slideshow.
Yeah, perfect. Those are great questions. And those are definitely questions I hear a lot from my community matchmaking clients who just want to know more about what communities might be a fit for them. Certainly when it comes to medical freedom, because people can have, certain needs around that. So by and large, most communities do not have mandates around vaccination, at least at this point in time. I know situations change a lot, but that's been my experience that most do not. That said, some do. Tend to be, if I were to stereotype a little bit within the communities movement, co-housing communities, just by their nature, tend to be a little bit more restrictive, or certainly have a culture where more people are vaccinated. Tends to be that the maybe more radical communities have more no restrictions, or are just more in generally open. That said, though, I want to emphasize something, because COVID has been impacting all of our intentional communities in different ways. And one of the things that I've appreciated about living in community, when this hit, we were all living together, and we had some shared values, but no one was prepared for a pandemic. And so people within our community reacted to it in different ways, as did everyone else in society, right? And created a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety. And one of the beautiful things is that the residents of our community were able to talk to each other about it and have open conversation and dialogue. And so sometimes people who I work with want to find a community where, everyone thinks like them, like-minded, and that's great. But it doesn't always happen, even if that's your intention. And so one of the things that can happen in community is we have this opportunity to come together and explore topics and converse and have open conversation. And I think that is so valuable, and just would encourage anyone who's thinking about community living to bring that mindset into it, that these are places where we can have conversations about difficult topics. And a lot of communities have their policies written on their website. Most communities are really open to talking about it. So if you have a question about a community that you would like to visit, feel free to write them an email or give them a call and just ask, find out.
Beautiful. I think already people commented about it is so important to be able to talk with each other. Yeah. And I think that is probably another big advantage to conscious intentional communities is, and I'm a communication guy, that's what I do, but I'm imagining that there is an increased opportunity for dialogue about differences, which I would guess be another advantage to being in intentional community.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and this is one of the things about living in community, you are very often needing to be in dialogue about a whole range of topics. Yeah. And most communities have regular meetings, whether it's monthly, sometimes weekly. So yeah, you're in the room with your neighbors talking about all kinds of things, child rearing, buying more chickens for the next season, harvesting wood. I'm just thinking of things that we've talked about in our last meeting. So beautiful. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Finances, schooling.
Schooling, great. This is really a mix. I would say most intentional communities don't have homeschooling, although it is certainly a higher percentage of families that choose homeschooling than the normal population statistics, which I don't know. In our community, we have several families that do homeschooling, several that send their kids to the local school, and a few that send their kids to the Waldorf school. So it's a mix. Some communities, though, have more of a focus on schooling and may even have, a homeschooling co-op within the community, or even a more well-established proper school with their own, nature philosophy or whatever schooling freedom philosophy that they hold as a community, and then they can really do that in a much more organized way within their groups. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And this is a quick one. J. Mayer asks, internet, plumbing, electric grid, most communities have those basics, I assume.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It's funny, it's either the kind of misperceptions I hear are either like a hippie commune off in the woods, like totally completely off grid, no modern amenities, all the way to, oh, intentional communities are gated neighborhoods for the privileged and only the super wealthy get to live there. So it's really a mix. I would say the reality is somewhere in the middle for most communities. Yeah.
Great.
Mm.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think that covers there were other smaller questions, and I'll scan again. A lot of people are beginning to also put up communities that they're familiar with, like Jimmy Twyman's community. Jimmy's been on the show a few times. But I think let's get back to the power.
Do you want to do the income financial question?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So, again, it's a mix. And I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but I'll just say again that most communities are ones in which you would come into the community with your own resources, either having a job or maybe you're retired, and you would be, sustaining yourself while living in the community, unless the community, and there's just a few that are income sharing or maybe have a business like a retreat center or a education center that you would be employed in through living in the community. But most communities, you bring your own finances. Often you're looking at either renting or buying a home or land. And it really varies in terms of the cost. You can have an urban or suburban co-housing community that's at market rate or even above market rate because it's a really desirable place to live. And it may seem expensive, although you do need to keep in mind all the pluses that you get through choosing that option versus a house just on the normal market. You get all this benefit of community and shared facilities and resources. And then you can have communities that are much more affordable, especially in more rural areas, or communities that have a focus on being affordable, like a housing cooperative or a nonprofit or a community land trust, which is probably my favorite model. And these are types of communities that are intended to be permanently affordable, which, as we know, we have a housing crisis right now, and finding affordable housing is just increasingly challenging. So I'm hopeful that communities can be one model for how we can address that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, here's a quick one. What happens when someone turns out to not be a good fit? What happens when you get somebody who's just, yeah.
And it happens, certainly. So hopefully any community that you would be considering joining or starting would be one where there is a good membership process in place. It's an iterative process. You start out by going to visit, feeling out the waters. I often equate finding community with building a relationship. Like you could think of like a marriage or dating someone. You start out, you go on the first date, and you have the courtship phase, and you deepen into commitment and trust. And so it's a slow process. Some communities, it could be a full year before you're a full member of that community. It does depend on the type of community to a large degree. So hopefully if a community has those systems in place and a good vetting process, it's more likely that you would feel it's a fit and the community would feel it's a fit before you sign papers and move into an actual community. It does happen, of course, that people aren't a fit for a variety of reasons. And again, most communities have a process for expulsion if it comes to that. And usually it is, again, an iterative process of having a conversation, trying to work things out, all that conflict resolution skills are at play. And most communities will have a policy for how that happens. And then, for example, in our community, I think our expulsion process, because we recently rewrit our bylaws, so it's top of mind. We have a consensus process, so it needs to be 100% consensus of everyone in the community minus the party in question for that individual to be asked to leave. And there's a hearing process and a lot of conversation that would go into it.
Well, that leads to a question that Eleanor George just asked about governance. How often, and again, we recognize it's a wide variety, but how often is governance majority-based? How often is it a small board? How often is it a charismatic leader? Tell us about the variations and commonality about governance.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough to do commonalities. One thing I'll say at the get-go is, who was it? There's someone who's well known in the communities space, and this person was asked, what's the best decision-making and governance method in a community? And his answer was, whichever one works for the community. It's not a one size fits all. It has to do with the culture of the community and what they're comfortable with and what actually on the day-to-day functions. So most intentional communities are not a rule of one. That might be more of a cult scenario. I think some communities can unintentionally default into that model if they have some power dynamics that haven't been fully examined, especially if one person or a small group or a couple owns the property, owns the building or the land. That's like a really tricky situation. Most what I would describe as healthy communities don't have that. They have a more participatory model. Usually it's not voting, although voting can be a default for communities. And that's what we're all familiar with, in our democracies, we vote for our president, and that's how it happens. In communities, more often they're working with a dynamic governance model, whether it is sociocracy or consensus or a modified version of consensus, whereby everyone gets together, depending on the scale of the issue. A proposal is put forward, there's multiple rounds to hear on the proposal, and then a decision is made based on that. And then, of course, if the model of the community is a nonprofit or a land trust, then sometimes it can be a board who is a smaller subset that's making a decision, or often a larger group will give decision-making power to a smaller subset just for more efficiency of making decisions, like giving to a committee. So yeah, it's complex, but in general, most communities have a participatory decision-making process that hopefully works for them.
Right. Thank you so much for answering these questions. This is really, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like everyone's questions. Thanks for asking
Um,
them.
And Susan's asking if you will be discussing tiny house communities. I don't know if
Ooh.
that's part of your presentation, but if not, then maybe you could address that now.
Yeah, I didn't include a slide on tiny house communities, but there are a growing number. And even if it's not a tiny house community where every house is a tiny house, there are a lot of communities that embrace tiny houses in rural areas, but also in the city. I've seen a lot of intentional communities that'll put tiny houses in the backyard and do urban infill, which again is helping with the housing crisis. There is a website, searchtinyhousevillages.org, and that is a directory for tiny house communities specifically, if that's something that you're interested in. If you have a tiny house that you can bring to the community, or you're interested in buying a tiny house within one of these communities, search tinyhousevillages.org.
Great, thank you very much. All right, well, if you've got a few more slides you want to share, let's go there.
Sure. All right, let me get back to the presentation. Okay, so right, we were talking about communities near Asheville. And another community, if you're looking for one that you could easily go visit, Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Missouri is a great one. They have a wonderful visitor program. Can either do a 3-day, a 1-week, or a 2-week visitor program. And Dancing Rabbit really walks the talk in terms of their ecological sustainability. There have been numerous studies that show that this community has like a fraction of the carbon footprint that the average American has. And in part, it's thanks to their car sharing program. So when you live in the community, you have access to one of the community's many vehicles to take out to drive, but you yourself don't necessarily need to own your own car. And because they're in such a rural part of Missouri, there's no building codes, so they can build all kinds of crazy cob structures and, super sustainable natural buildings. Canticle Farm in Oakland, California. So this is an urban community, and I'm just really impressed by what they're doing to incorporate marginalized groups into their community project, especially the formerly incarcerated. They have a whole program within the community where they provide housing and work and opportunity to individuals who were formerly incarcerated. And it's like you're on the city street in Oakland, and then you walk down an alley past a house, and then all of a sudden in the backyard, you're in this permaculture oasis. It's incredible what they're doing to transform this part of the city. And a similar model on this topic of using intentional community as a force of good in terms of how we think about housing and land ownership, I want to highlight the cooperative community of New West Jackson in Mississippi. They have been buying up dilapidated homes in different neighborhoods, and as a cooperative, selling them or renting them out to individuals to become part of their intentional community, and again, making them much more affordable than they would have been otherwise. All right, so now shifting into some more spiritual communities, Lama Foundation in New Mexico. This is a community that is embracing of a wide variety of spiritual traditions. Lama is known for welcoming in teachers from around the world. They're located in the high elevation of New Mexico, but really beautiful courses and programs. And they have is it a season-long or a year-long internship apprenticeship program that I highly recommend if anyone's interested. And I think this is the last community that I want to touch on, which is the Camp Hill Communities Network. And this is a network of over 100 different communities in the United States and in Europe. And it's for individuals with special needs. So this is a community for people who have and don't have special needs, who live together, work together, run schools, do jobs. And again, it's so impressive to see models of community that welcome in and like truly create an inclusive home for some of the most marginalized members of our society. I got to visit a Camp Hill community in New York State and a few in Denmark, which is really where this movement took off. And beautiful. All right, I think, oh no, I have some more, good. Queen City Co-op in Denver, Colorado. I got to visit them last week. My family is in Denver, so I got to go out and visit. And I tried to visit, as I always do, as many communities in the area as I can. And this one is very impressive because they have fought for years and had some success. They could have more success to change some of the restrictive zoning policies in the city of Denver that really limit how many non-related adults are allowed to live together. Because in some cities and even rural areas, it's restrictions make it impossible to do intentional community. And a lot of these policies have a legacy. As I learned when I visit, they have a legacy that's rooted in trying to segregate poor families who are more often likely to want to live with non-related adults. It was, it's discriminatory policies that need to change. I'm also reminded, as I mentioned this, I'm thinking of a very rural community in Ontario, Canada, a whole village, eco-village, and they had such an issue with the zoning policies to create their community that they developed this giant building that's one big building with each wing gives a home to a member of their community. But because it's all under one big roof, instead of multiple separate dwellings, they were able to make the community possible. But the government was so against having multiple dwellings on the same piece of land. So all kinds of hoops and hurdles that communities can have to go through to make their project happen. But it's setting precedent, and it's paving the way for more projects like this to be made possible.
Cynthia, there's a couple of questions that I'd like to ask. Are there any communities based on focusing on humanitarian work?
There are quite a number, I would say. One that's just popping into my head first off, the farm community in Tennessee, which you may have heard of because it's one of the older intentional communities out there. And I just knew about them as this large 200-person community on 1,000 acres in Tennessee. But I recently did a virtual tour with them and I found out that they are doing really incredible humanitarian work around the world. In urban areas. I think it's in Uruguay where they're doing most of their work. So that's one that I would highlight. Another network that comes to mind would be the Catholic worker communities. This was a network started by Dorothy Day of like Catholics and Christians, but also non-Christians. And their whole focus is service-based. Each community does a specific service-based project in the region that they're located in. So that's a network of hundreds of communities throughout the United States, especially.
Stopping you just so we can see more of you. And then Margie's asking, are there any over 55, in other words, communities for people 55 and over that are not based on farming? In other words, where people over 55 can participate, but not necessarily be.
Great. I'm so glad you asked that question because there are a number of them. And it is, I think, a wonderful option for people who are over 55 who don't want like the typical retirement community. They want an intentional community where the residents are the owners and make decisions together and kind of, run the community itself, unlike a typical retirement community. So some examples could be Earth Spirit Community. I think they're in North Carolina. Elderberry Community. I like the name of that one.
That's
They're
great.
also-
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have a slide for this one coming up. If you're looking for an urban community, PDX Commons, they're in Portland, Oregon. And there are some directories of senior, we call them senior communities. One would be SAGE. SAGE is the acronym. Am I gonna remember the acronym, what it stands for? Probably not. But the SAGE Senior Community Alliance, something like that. Yeah, and there's a few other ones. I have on my website a recent article all about senior communities and the difference between them and intergenerational communities and how to know which might be a fit for you.
That might be a good segue because, of course, I want to promote you and your website. And so let's do that right now. And then you can show us where we can find that article. So to work with Cynthia, her website is her name, CynthiaTina.com. CynthiaTina.com. And
I actually have a new website as well that'll have more resources. It's communityfinders.com.
all right, let me go there right now.
Yeah.
So that's the better one for us to go to.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Communityfinders.com. There we are. All right, let's take a look there. I'm going to put this into the Zoom room. So for those of you watching on Facebook or YouTube, it's communityfinders.com. Oh, and there's a free quiz. So that looks like fun. Tell us, guide us around this website.
Yeah, well, the free quiz is a great place to start. That'll give you a sense of what type of community is a fit for you. And then all of the articles and resources are under the blog section. So if you, go to the blog, that's where you can see the recent article. Are you too old to join an intentional community? Definitely not. So you should read the article to learn more about that. And I have a list of different events that are happening this year related to intentional communities and books.
Oh my God, this is fantastic, Cynthia.
Yeah.
What a beautiful resource.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
thanks.
look at I'm going to read some of the topics in the box here. 14 intentional community gatherings you won't want to miss. 40 best books about intentional community living. 10 of the best eco-villages in the world for sustainable travel. Intentional communities, a beginner's guide to life in cooperative culture. Visiting intentional living communities, advice for first-time visitors. 7 tips for contacting an intentional community to ensure a positive response, and a free template. Types of intentional communities, your insider guide to 15 of the most common types, 6 steps to find your home in an intentional community, and 21 intentional community directories to expand your search. Gosh, this is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's my main focus these days is just pulling together more content and resources.
And then everybody want to make sure, put in your name and your email address and sign up to get news from Cynthia. So let's all do that right now. Go to communityfinders.com and sign up to get the news. I'm most interested in, I'm going to say, learning more about intentional communities. There we go. So I just you have to click one of these. There we go. Okay, I've joined. And now back to Cynthia. Anything else you want to point out about your new website?
I think that's everything. I did just put the correct link to the Sage website in the chat. And that, along with some other community directories, are listed in that blog article that has all the directories.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Now, can people book appointments with you one-on-one as a consultant?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the community matchmaking service. You can also find that on the website. And would be happy to help any of you if you would like advice or recommendations for communities that could be a fit for you and your values and your lifestyle and what your vision for community is.
Beautiful. And is the best way to contact you through your website?
Yeah, that's the best way. And I will respond.
Okay, beautiful. We've got about a little less than 15 minutes left, but we will want to have a closing song with Omar Shah and a couple of announcements. I also thought it might be kind of fun if Connie and Andrew turn their camera on. I'm going to introduce you to two of our regulars who are creating an eco village. So Connie and Andrew, if you turn your camera on, I'll introduce you to Cynthia. Are there some final thoughts or more slides you want to share?
I don't know if I should do more slides. I think I could just wrap things up with some final thoughts.
Okay.
I want to encourage all of you to consider intentional community living as a possibility for you. Go visit one, get inspired, check them out. And even if it's not in the cards for you to up and move to a community, at least learning more about these places and seeing what you can do to foster more community wherever you're living right now. My aim isn't that everyone needs to go and move to these places or start a community. It's just that my hope and dream is that someday these communities are just considered the normal, that everyone has strong relationships with their neighbors and feels that trust and connection and support, feels more purpose in their life. So it doesn't have to look one specific way. Just want to encourage you to avail me as a resource, and I'm wishing you so much support on your community journey.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I see that Andrew and Connie have turned on the cameras. These are two of our dear friends, and they are our newlyweds. After 20 years of living together, they finally got married a couple months ago. Connie and Andrew, you are both on camera with Cynthia. And Andrew, tell her you have an eco-village you're building. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
I would be happy to, Scott. Thank you. And Cynthia, wow, just beautiful. I could not. I mean, we have major other stuff we're committed to on Sunday mornings. And once we heard about this, it's like, oops, sorry, Connie went and did some of the, hey, Connie, there you are. So as you can tell, we're joined at the hip, but we have separate Zoom possibilities. So just in a nutshell, and Scott may not really realize this, and if you go to the link I put on the website, and I'll put it in again, the idea is to build a network of replicable, think of that word, you can replicate them, eco-villages, because I believe, and I'm a climate scientist, and a lot of my climate colleagues foresee a huge issue of climate refugees, people who need new housing, new jobs, new communities. So the idea is to create ones that can actually be replicated. So it starts out with a 10-acre prototype. There's a link in the chat to that. And it does all of the things you're talking about. I'm very aware of, we live at Sunrise Ranch in Colorado. We're very aware of Hummingbird, for example. We're part of that family in New Mexico. Very aware of Llama Foundation, going way back to the farm in Tennessee, on and on and on. I have not lived in these communities for long periods of time, with the exception of the one we're in right now, which is Sunrise Ranch, which is a big learning process. When I first broached the idea to Connie, she's like, I do not want to live in a community. But guess what? Man, we love it. We love living in a community. So I could talk a lot about the specific one we live in, which is a top-down governance structure that I would not recommend. And it's very hard to do the communal, everyone is equal, sort of communistic, socialistic thing. Tricky. I'm wondering about governance. And I'm particularly interested in knowing about the ones that have really worked long term, such as Llama, such as the farm in Tennessee, stuff like that. I'm sort of wondering about, I think we humans created the concept of the corporation. And I think we can recreate the corporation as a conscious entity. And if we had a conscious corporate governance, where it was some crossover between democracy and almost a business model, because I think these things have to have a solid grounding. So that's just a little bit of what we're doing. And this project of ours is 100% about climate. These facilities are not only climate friendly, they extract CO2 from the atmosphere, they reflect heat back into this, they actively cool the planet. So they're very purpose driven.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I just wanted to, give you a minute. And here is the proof of concept that Andrew has created for Sacred Earth Enterprises. We've put the link into
That's
the
one
box.
possible location there. Scott, scroll a bit more and then a little more that way. Yep. And click, you see where it says SEE, that stands for Sacred Earth Enterprises. Click on that. And here's a plot plan for Tierra Santa, Sacred Earth. Climate Resilient Eco Village.
Wow. Cynthia, any thoughts as you look at what this beautiful design?
I'm curious to learn more about it. It looks great. And I'm happy that you're living at Sunrise Ranch. I've been there. And yeah. And I think it's good when people have a vision for a new type of community, or certainly a prototype for many communities, that it's grounded in the lived experience of being in a community. So happy to hear that you're well connected and grounded in that as you help vision what's next for the communities movement. It's awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And
Scott, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you again, brother. That's coming right up in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
that's right. That's right. And actually, that's a good segue, just to remind everybody that the Global Peace Tribe is going to be having our next retreat, and it's built around a whole series of events taking place in Los Angeles. Please consider coming down, and we've created it to be very flexible. So you can come for one day, or you can come for 1 week. We've got events beginning on Tuesday, March 28th, going all the way to Monday, April 3rd. I'm going to put the link into the chat box. You can get all the details. It's all on one link, including we've rented a big, beautiful mansion in West LA, where a lot of us will be making meals and sharing time together. And a lot of your favorite Global Peace Tribers are going to be there, including Omashar and Connie and Andrew and Mark Danislavsky and Wowza and all sorts of other people. Bonnie and Roger, who are with us right now. Charlotte and Jennifer. So a lot of our favorite Global Peace Tribers are going to be there. And it's going to be an amazing time. Beautiful music. Shri and Kira coming up from Ecuador are going to be, they're bringing their shaman with them, and there's going to be a whole amazing 2 days of events with them. A psychic fair that Tangela has put together. It's going to be a powerful week, so please do join us. I want to go to Cynthia. Again, thank you so much. Just, you are such a delight in the way you share this information, and you've done such a beautiful job. Somebody needs to mute. There we go. Welcome, Charlotte. We just talked about you. And your new website, I'm so impressed with all the blog posts that you have, because you've really nailed every single one of those. Was like, oh yeah, well, anybody interested should read that one or should go to that one. So thank you so much for the wonderful work you've done.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. And thank you again for having me and all the wonderful work that you're doing here with the Global Peace Tribe. It's really nice to, touch base and reconnect with this movement and all of you who are listening and participating. Thank you.
Yeah, next month will be 3 years we've been doing this. We've done over 500 shows.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's really
every
impressive.
imaginable topic. So,
Amazing.
but you're a wonderful resource, Cynthia, and just a delight. Thank you so much for the work you're doing and being on the show again.
Yeah, thank you.
One last announcement, and then we'll close, as always, with Om Shar music. Next week, we've got a really special show happening on Saturday night. I really want to make sure everybody marks off time on it. There's a lot of talk right now about the current astrology. And a lot of different presenters on the show over the last month have been talking about how late March, there's a lot going on. Some people see it from a spiritual perspective. Some see it from an astrological perspective. Some people see it just as a consciousness raising perspective. Well, who better to kind of put all that together than our friends, the Twin Ray. So next Saturday night, we're going to do something unique. Usually, I have 5 or 6 guests on a Saturday night, like last night. But next week, it's just going to be the Twin Ray and music with Om Shar and one of our favorite musical artists, Kristen Hoffman. So definitely, if you want to really drop into what's going on energetically, astrologically right now, make sure you join our show next Saturday night. All right. All things begin and end with Om Shar on this show. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, brother, to close us out.
Yes, apparently they do all beginning and end with me. And Cynthia, what a beautiful presentation. What a beautiful spirit you are. Holy smoke, you're a shining light. And I would love to be an intentional community. I know how important it is to be with kindred souls and be able to have what used to be a neighborhood again. What a concept. I mean, duh. I know, right? So thank you so much. And it's Sacred Sunday, so here's a group song we can all sing if we remain muted. And here's the lyrics in the chat box. Sing along if you want, or not. If you don't, you can hum. You could hum. All right, you're going to have to scroll back up for the lyrics.
Love is in my heart today. Love heals in every way. Gentle is this heart of mine. I am in love divine. We'll stick with that one for a while. Okay. Love is in my heart today. Love heals in every way. Gentle is this heart of mine. I am in love divine. Second verse. I am healing, I am whole. I am loved deep in my soul. Gentle is this heart of mine. I am in love divine. I am healing, I am whole. I am loved within my soul. Gentle is this heart of mine. I am in love divine. One more time. Love is in my heart today. Love heals in every way. Gentle is this heart of mine. I am divine.
That was beautiful. That's really sweet. I'm going to go to gallery review one last time, everybody.
Did we do light touch?
Light touch. My gosh. We will do light touch next week. We will do light touch next week. To be honest, I'm in a hotel room and we need to check out.
You do.
So let's all twinkle Cynthia Tina for an amazing presentation. What a special soul. And of course, Omar Shah for his music, and all of you for being the beautiful souls that you are. I will see you next Wednesday night as we come back with The Awakening World. Come to Los Angeles, everybody. Make it happen. It's going to be beautiful. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful Sacred Sunday.